Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Alyssa Parento, and I'm joined by Ryan Slaney and Ann On. And the three of us work within the threat intelligence group of the Trellix Guardians. And we're here today because we just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about some of the current threat intelligence issues of interest. And we thought we'd start off with all this geopolitical volatility that we'd actually talk a bit about how with the current wars and conflicts, how there's a lot of disruption within the cyber realm as well, and what that looks like, and what maybe you should be worried about in that area. So first off, let's talk about the war in the Ukraine. I think that that was a bit of a David and Goliath issue when it started a few years ago, and I don't think anybody was expecting it to have the outcome where we are a few years later, to be exactly where it is. And technology has played a big play there, a big part there, I should say. So I'm curious, Anne, Ryan, what do you guys think? Was there anything in particular that happened during this conflict or is currently happening that kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I think what may be most interesting is what didn't happen. And I think that we didn't see a highly effective cyber campaign, at least the one that Russia probably thought it was going to have. And that's really for a few reasons. So one was Ukraine was essentially the testing ground for Russian cyber operations for nearly a decade before the actual invasion. And they did see some success with the 2015 Black Energy attack, and later on with Indestroyer, where they did take a bunch of Uvlenergos or Ukrainian energy companies offline, resulting in a kinetic damage, or at least a kinetic result of no power delivered to Ukrainians in the winter for several hours. So I think that they thought that, stuff like that was going to continue to be successful. What they didn't bank on was, I think, the Ukrainians learning from those attacks, adapting, the assistance they got from, NATO and Five Eyes countries, and to bolster their cyber defense capabilities. Then when the actual invasion started, and it lasted more than the 3 days, I think that Russia originally intended it to, they tried kind of an Indestroyer 2 type attack that basically fell flat. Ukraine was prepared for it. They killed it as soon as it came in, and it didn't have the implications that the other two campaigns had. And that's when we saw really Russia switch to just purely kinetic strikes. So the cyber warfare wasn't working. It would take too long to plan, to do reconnaissance, to build the assets and infrastructure necessary to carry out more potential campaigns, and they had a stockpile of missiles and planes, and they just relied on those to take out the power plants instead. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist, and it was almost like the Russian use of Ukraine, use of targeting Ukraine over the past decade really came back to haunt them during this actual military invasion.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. It seemed like, they started off kind of trying to do one thing and then keep on kind of falling back to going back to be kinetic, which we're actually seeing across different conflicts right now, which is interesting. And did you have any thoughts about like your expectations there, Vice, what they were doing in the cyber realm and the kinetic realm in the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Yeah, so one of my observations is that the line between the cyber espionage and the cyber warfare is like increasingly blurred, right? In the traditionally, intelligence collections and offensive cyber operations that we're seeing in Russia-Ukraine conflict, and now even like U.S.-Iran-Israel conflict, it's that they often have separate goals and they're separate activities, right? Like espionage focused on gathering information, collecting threat intel, while offensive operations are typically designed to achieve more disruptive or destructive effects, right? Today, access obtained through cyber espionage or pre-positioning activities can actually serve lots of purposes, right? And then may ultimately support a range of the objectives like military operations and offensive operations. So they're kind of like, there's overlap is particularly interesting, and we're seeing it happening a lot around the world when there is a geopolitical crisis, right? Like they're specifically targeting critical infrastructure, telecommunications, and government sectors, and those like industries with strategic interests, right? In this case, it can be very difficult to determine whether cyber activity, their primary objective is for intelligence collection or for operation preparation or both, right? And a lot of time we see they're happening in parallel. While like the kinetic military activities is happening in parallel while there is offensive military operations, right? And tools is also shared, like the same tools, infrastructure, access pathways, and they may support multiple missions, whether it's cyber espionage or warfare, and over extended period of time. So it's really interesting. I think we're in a very interesting point of time. We're seeing a lot of interesting things happening in cyber espionage and warfare and military activities and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's so much going on. I think one of the things that Ryan said earlier that I thought was interesting is just talking about the adaptability of the Ukrainians. You were talking about it, and too, when we're doing these things in parallel, if they're learning from them and able to, detect maybe some of this activity on their systems and then pivot or stop them from happening again, protecting those energy grids, as Ryan was mentioning. The other place where they've really, really adapted is with their drone technology, right? I think now, through sheer necessity, they've become actually they have become the experts in drone technology and drone usage in wartime. And I'm curious what you guys think of the repercussions of that are.
Yeah, I think that, the effectiveness of the drones that the Ukrainians are using has been unmatched. Certainly by Russia, they just certainly can't keep up with the sheer amount and just how well they perform. We looked at just over the last couple of weeks, Ukraine's been able to essentially isolate Crimea from getting any kind of gas or any other supplies in, to the point where, there's rumors that Russia will abandon it and that Ukraine may invade and actually take it back, which is pretty serious. And that's probably one of the biggest milestones that there's been in the last 3 years that this conflict's been going on. Some of the cyber implications, though, obviously, there's been a number of NATO countries that have recently announced that they've entered into agreement with Ukraine to manufacture those drones in those countries and then send them to Ukraine for battlefield use. And, anyone that's followed the Russian political or cyber file for any amount of time would know that Russia is not going to like that. And they're likely going to throw a tantrum, and that tantrum will be cyber activities. So could be espionage activities directed at these drone manufacturers. So how do what are the capabilities of these drones? What's the range? How much explosives? What's the frequency they run on? And so on. The espionage component. The other one might be, DDoS or information operations to try to change the public's opinion on Ukraine and their countries building drones that will be used potentially for kinetic strikes on the battlefield. And then the other would be straight up for potentially a kinetic destruction of those assembly lines. So can they get into the ICS system? Can we stop production? Because really that's the only way they're going to try to reverse some of these losses that they're having now with the Ukrainian drones being so effective. So that's certainly something I'm keeping my eye on right now, looking at the NATO countries that have announced these deals, whether or not they're going to now become an increased target. And my bet is that they will.
Yeah, it's definitely the next few months are certainly going to be interesting, just the way that the war has gone in the past year. And it really kind of, to your point, Ryan, feels like we're hitting a bit of a tipping point. Speaking of hitting points, we have hit our time for today. We just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of information, our thoughts around this conflict and the cyber ramifications. Super appreciate you guys joining us. And please, stay tuned for more short videos like this. Thank you.